Hello and welcome to this edition of Beyond the Politics, a regular examination of the events happening right here in the Quinte region and the people who work so hard behind the scenes to make it all happen. I'm your host, Paul Martin. Joining me, my regular co-host, columnist for the Belleville Intelligencer, Colin Mackay.
Thanks, Paul.
And our special guest for the show, the last one of March, and now our first four-time appear on the show, Belleville Mayor Mitch Panciuk.
Good. Hi, everybody.
So let's start off with, it has been yet another difficult week for people in the city of Belleville, also the city of Ottawa, and the greater NHL family with the passing over the past few days of Belleville Senators and Ottawa Senators owner Eugene Melnyk. Your thoughts on this? He was someone that you had a greater level of contact with than many, but that many from the community still have fond memories of.
Yeah, Mr. Melnyk meant a great deal to our city. He was personally responsible for bringing an American Hockey League team, one of only 4 professional hockey teams in all of Ontario. And he did it because he really cared about Belleville and saw the fact that we were a hockey town, as he used to always call it. And he really believed in us getting a Calder Cup championship, and he's worked hard on that. And my interaction with him was always very professional. He was very polite. I found him to be a gracious guy, normal, down to earth. You think of someone who's a billionaire, that they would be, a little bit different. But no, he enjoyed it, and we had an opportunity to spend some time together, and I got to know him, and it's a sad day for his family, sad day for the team, and obviously someone who at 62 passed away too young.
I met him when he came around the time that they originally announced the team, and they did the pond hockey events happening in Ottawa in Quinte West, and I had a chance to hear him speak then and also speak to him one-on-one afterwards. And one thing I was always struck with him was, as you said, he seemed very down to earth, and he had a great sense of humor. He told a few stories about things with the team, and he could relate to people on a personal level that you don't often associate with someone who's in that income bracket.
No, and I tell the story about the first time I met him was on Valentine's Day in 2020, where he came. He was taking his daughter around to school. She was looking at a university, and so he was here for the game. We had a chance to meet, and then my wife and I happened to be in Barbados later on in the month on a cruise. And when I told him, I said, we get together for lunch. He offered to show us around the island. It's not that big, so he showed up in probably a 15-year-old Toyota Land Cruiser, I think, and it was had rust on it, and he was driving on the opposite side because that's the way the roads are there. And it was trade deadline day in the NHL. So as we're driving around Barbados looking at things, he's getting phone calls from Pierre Dorion, the general manager of the Ottawa Senators, running through what they plan to do, and Mr. Melnyk would give his answer and his direction. And what a great day. And it was so enthusiastic, and he was so passionate, and he loved hockey, and he loved the Ottawa Senators. And he told me that they were working and focusing on the draft because they wanted players, because he wanted an American Hockey League championship team here in Belleville. And and it's just unfortunate that his health wasn't what it was. The last probably 10 years of his life, he's really struggled. And when he was here in October, you could tell he was looking a little more frail. And I know that in February he was recovering from pneumonia. I don't think anybody thought it was quite this serious, but it's sad. And from the city's point of view, we are lowering the flag at half-staff at City Hall and at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center, and it'll stay down for the rest of the week onto Monday. And then next Friday and Saturday, we're lowering all the flags again for the first home games of the Belleville Senators to honor Mr. Melnyk's life and his legacy that he's left us.
He seemed to wear jerseys all the time whenever I saw pictures of him, so he seemed to get into it as a fan.
Well, he was a fan, and he knew a lot about hockey. He knew about other teams. He wasn't just someone that it was an owner, like he cared. And I know that in Ottawa, there was mixed feelings about that in his time there. But here, I think everybody appreciated the fact that he didn't have to bring a team to Belleville, and the last mayor and council worked really hard to get that team here. We have we had a really, really good team going into COVID before that season was cut short, and our council was committed to not just having the Belleville Senators survive the pandemic, but to thrive when they came out. So we have stepped up and assisted them during this time of non-revenue already, and then we'll be making an announcement in the next little while about some further assistance, because our program had only contemplated the season until last June, and then COVID would be back to normal.
So
we're not back to normal yet.
So Mitch, I know it's tragic, but is it going to affect the team, or is it going to affect the lease? Or I mean, all these questions need to be answered at some point. So could you just give us a rundown on what the situation is?
It won't. We don't know what the overall ownership structure will be. Mr. Melnyk was quite sick over a decade ago when he had his liver issues, and so he had already taken steps to ensure the continuation of his businesses and everything else, including his sports teams. But we have a lease with a company that owns the Belleville Senators, and that lease is for a number of years, and so we'll continue to work on it. The lease and the option, I think, were 15, and then we've extended it based on our assistance. So what we'll do is we'll wait for them to determine who will be the corporate controllers of the team. I do know that one of his daughters was very interested in sports management and carrying on in her father's footsteps.
Well, that's what's on people's hearts and minds, but still, even with all that happening, the business of council, the business of the city has to keep moving forward. And just yesterday, council finalized the budget for the year with finalizing the operating budget. Can you go over some of the raw details of that and what impact will that have for the average citizen?
Well, the city of Belleville is growing, and we are now, we passed the $170 million operating budget, and when you add the $76 million record capital budget that was passed in December, plus the flow-through funds that we collect for the school board, we're now a $235 million operation, and so it is a big business with lots of moving parts, and this year was a particularly challenging year because while we had hoped we would be out of COVID and the recovery, we still find ourselves in a recovery year. So, $1.4 million in this year's budget is COVID mitigation as we come into recovery. But we worked really hard. We maintained the level of services. We've expanded some services, but we've also been able to keep our tax impact low. And so yesterday, at the end of the day, when all the dust will settle, Belleville urban taxpayers will expect a 1.39% property tax increase. Canafton urban will be at 1.32. Canafton rural will be at 0.88, and the rural will be at 0.56. I'm sorry, those are the 4-year averages. We've kept the tax increase below 2% in Belleville this year, and we have this great 4-year average that I just listed. This budget is really a culmination of the 3 previous ones where we invested in things to grow our city, and so all the new homes that are being built, the new businesses that are being built are able to hold our tax increase at below the average of anybody in the area, and certainly one of the best performing cities in Ontario.
People still complain even though it's, that's pretty reasonable if you, from my perspective, under 2% is pretty good.
Who will be saying that this is way too much, that even...
they don't like the services?
They would like to see services cut, they don't use them, and they're paying for them. And then we have other people who want every single road in the city paved this year and fixed. And so it's a real balancing act sometimes on council where you never have enough money to do what it is that you want. But we're keenly aware of the fact that, for some residents, property tax increases mean whether they can stay in their home or not. So we really are careful. This is a prudent budget. Again, it's built on what we've done before. We're spending a record amount on capital, which again will help the city grow. Not just giving new services, better services to people that are here now, but also allowing our city to grow in the future. And we saw some proof of that. We saw in the last census, Belleville growing, the fastest growing community in Eastern Ontario. And that gives us a good future.
So have you been able to do this also because you're working with council, not just doing it in the last couple of days, but you're actually getting together and meeting? Is there a committee or something that sort of helps it along the way?
Well, I think that's part of it, Colin. Certainly the fact that we now have a council meeting that takes a day to finalize the budget, that's in large part because of the finance committee that we struck. Mm-hmm. And I serve on that committee with Councillor Sanderson, Bill Sanderson, who's the chair, and Garnet Thompson's on that committee. And so we work with staff throughout the time, and then we present a budget that council can adopt. The budget that we dealt with yesterday was approved without a single amendment, and that tells us that people felt that it was a good budget, and we had discussion. But there are a lot of growth pressures on us, and anyone just has to go to the grocery store or the gas station to see the pressures that the city of Belleville's under as well. Fuel prices were budgeted this year to be 45% more than in the 2021 budget. police and Quinte Conservation and the Library Board, Hastings County, everybody is seeing significant increases of 5 and 6%. And if we didn't have the growth that we were doing, we would be looking at a 4, 5, or a 6% property tax increase, which, for those people who think that 1.9% in 2022 is too high, imagine what they would think about a 6% property tax increase.
Well, most people wouldn't like 6%.
Of course not.
But if you're doing this, do you when you're doing these budgets, do you sort of allow for a 1 or 2% raise in, let's say, gas or other items that come along?
Typically you do, but this year we're having to use 45% as that increase. And you just go to the gas pumps and see. Certainly we've had a lot of pressures, and COVID has not been kind to municipal finances.
Well, your revenue would be down.
Exactly, and municipalities are the only level of government that can't run a deficit, an operating deficit, and so we have to tax people for what we are going to use this year. And so we've got terrific staff who worked really hard to work on this budget. I congratulate all the team at City Hall for bringing us realistic, practical steps. This budget is a combination of making sure we maintain our services, but yet we also invest in the future so that we'll have future growth.
How would you compare this year to previous years? I mean, it's funny. This is your 4th as mayor. Of course, you had previous ones as council, but 4 very different years. Yeah. The pre-COVID year, the first year where you had to adjust sort of on the fly, the first full COVID year from beginning to end that you knew about, and now this first quote-unquote endemic year. So how does this compare, and how has the process evolved?
Well, it's hard to give you a straight answer because each of them is so different. So, and they were all different circumstances. I would say this was probably the most difficult one that we handled because we have this appetite. People are wanting to get back to normal, and they want to have services back up and going, but we don't have the revenue yet to support it. And so, we had a lot of things that people wanted that we had to say no to. We had a lot of things that councillors wanted that we had to say no to. But I think we found the right balance between what we're going forward. Again, we haven't slowed down. COVID didn't stop us from investing in our city, and you just have to drive around and look at the new roads that we built, the historic deals we made to relocate the Ag Society, the new deal at Black Bear Ridge for $1.56 billion. All the new initiatives we've done. People have loved the way the city's looked in terms of our flower displays. This year is the Year of the Garden, an international year that recognizes and celebrates outdoors. We have extra money that we put aside to help celebrate that. We've have collective agreements with our unions that have mandated increases every year. So all these things really worked to make it really, really difficult. But we also had the huge advantage of the work we've done the last 3 years, investing in growth, that we could see some of that growth.
So this has been Beyond the Politics with Belleville Mayor Mitch Panciuk.